Chapter 35. Self-love is for the worthless. A trademark of the millennial generation has been the self-esteem movement. The idea was that if you built up the confidence in your child to go on and do great things, that child would have the confidence and courage to, well, go on and do great things. And so a whole host of self-esteem boosting measures were taken by parents and teachers to give the millennials the highest levels of self-esteem the world had ever seen. Millennials were told they could do anything. GPAs and grades were eliminated so as not to lessen their self-esteem. Scores were no longer kept as there would be no losers. Colleges would accept anybody, for a price. And trophy companies made billions in profits as now everybody got one. But key to the success of this strategy was that, inevitably, someday, the kid would go on to actually do something. They would go on to accomplish something of value or excellence. But as we all know, accomplishments, achievements, and excellence take work, and that flies directly in the face of inherent human laziness. And so what resulted instead was the cult of self-love. Self-love. Well-intended as the self-esteem movement may have been, it missed a critical component necessary for people's children to achieve success: hard work. Because for all the ass-kissing Boomer and Gen X parents did, for all the praises sung and trophies awarded, good feelings and self-esteem don't amount to jack in terms of real-world production. Skills, sacrifice, toil, the maths, and innovation result in success, not participation trophies and Adderall prescriptions. And so what happened was a generation of children was sent into the real world with confidence, encouragement, ambition, and passion, but no work ethic, skills, abilities, or talents, or anything else that would even come close to producing a single genuine accomplishment or achievement in life. This put millennials in about the worst situation possible. First, armed with only good feelings and passion, they were woefully ill-equipped to make anything of themselves, let alone support themselves out of school. Second, in lying to them with shtick like, follow your heart and the money will follow, we further delayed them from developing any valuable skills as they flailed about in college for 4 years, earning completely worthless degrees. Third, the people and environment the millennials grew up under installed a value structure that reinforced, if not outright entrenched, the idea that correct political beliefs held value unto themselves, giving millennials no incentive to find other sources of value in life. Fourth, by the time they graduated, around 22 to 24, this value structure was so cemented that millennials knew nothing else in life. They were never introduced to other thoughts, critical thinking, or simply being a rebel. All that they knew was, this is the way. Therefore, even if they wanted to, they wouldn't even know where to start to reset their life and start anew. So when millennials finally left the artificial environment of school and were forced into the real world, they would inevitably face a choice. They could either admit that everything they were told since the age of 5 was wrong, reinvent themselves in accordance with the realities of the real world, and recommit themselves to years more of education and a life of toil, or they could retreat into their insular political religion, where they had value merely for existing and holding the correct political views. And it's obvious which option most chose. But among the many and important existential questions this fork in the road presented, a critically important one was, what would give an individual value in life? In the real world, as we discussed in Chapter 24, what you offer other people is what gives you value in life. Be it a product you make, a service you render, or perhaps improving yourself so much that others wish to spend time with you, value was externally conferred. But in the insular world of the millennial political religion, value was self-conferred or internally conferred. What you believed, what you thought, which correct politics you advocated. It required the approval or participation of no one. And so, when presented with the choice of sacrificing your time and effort to produce something of value to society, or simply self-declaring yourself to have value because reasons, people realized one takes an incredible amount of effort and labor, and the other does not. And as human laziness springs eternal, we all know which path most millennials, and most people, chose. This resulted in pushing self-esteem another mile marker down the road into self-love. But not the traditional self-love we're familiar with, be it the healthy kind where you love yourself in the form of self-respect and self-confidence, or the bad kind where you are narcissistic or arrogant. This new form of self-love is the next evolutionary stage of self-esteem, where it creates an entire value structure where 100% of your life value is derived internally, not externally. You don't have to do anything for anyone. You don't have to work or sacrifice or toil to create something of value for others. You don't have to invest in yourself to make yourself attractive to other people. The concept of selflessness and altruism is completely absent from this form of love, if for the simple fact there is no counterparty to be selfless or altruistic towards. And so this new love is a completely self-contained system, a truly individual and personal affair, only requiring the individual and no one else. The epitomal example of this new form of self-love can be found within the fat acceptance movement. I was binging on a whole host of female-oriented podcasts, one of which was dedicated solely towards fat acceptance. But of the many theories, sub-theories, concepts, and philosophies within the fat acceptance movement, self-love was one of the more interesting ones. And, best as my observations could tell me, self-love within the fat acceptance movement took on a role of asexuality. That you didn't need other people to have a full and rewarding love life. That you, unto yourself, were enough to love. Matter of fact, seeking approval or love from others was a form of weakness, even oppression. And therefore, you had no obligation to others, only to yourself. But this concept of self-love isn't relegated to fat acceptance podcasts. You can see it elsewhere. Though anecdotal, and usually clickbait, there is the twice-a-year article about a woman marrying herself, her cat, or her dog. There was even an article about a woman marrying her degree. There is no limit to the number of men who live in alternative realities, be it via video games, RPGs, or waifus. And not in a healthy and fun way where people get together and play a session of D&D, but where they love their character and their lives in a world that does not exist more than the one that does. And there is no limit to the number of young people who place their politics ahead of everything else in life, including other people, deriving value only from their sanctimonious selves. But whether it's people in the fat acceptance movement, a woman marrying herself, a NEET playing a 48th level paladin, or a self-obsessed anarcho-communist telling you about his politics when you didn't ask, whatever mental acrobatics people execute to confer self-love upon themselves, in the end it boils down to one thing and one thing only: laziness. These people are just too damn lazy to produce anything of value. It's not intellectual, it's not avant-garde, it's not edgy. It's a huge, bogus, intellectual facade to lie to yourself that you have worth without having to produce anything of value, because you're so deathly afraid of work. And ultimately, it's an admission of weakness, as you'd rather stare into a pond like Narcissus instead of putting in the work to get a profession, get a life, find love, or make some friends. The saddest thing ever: when laziness trumps love. In the end, self-love cannot have value, and for multiple reasons why. First, in self-conferring love, you essentially make yourself your own printing press of love. And just like a government printing off money causes hyperinflation and destroys the value of a currency, so too does printing off self-love. I can look in the mirror all day and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. That doesn't make it so. There needs to be some genuine production, achievement, or accomplishments to give the individual intrinsic value, not a mere declaration of value by fiat. Second, the only consumer of this self-love currency can be the individual who manufactures it, because who else is going to want it? The quickest way to deter somebody from spending time with you is to tell that person how great you are all the time. And while certainly there is value in self-respect and self-confidence, when all somebody talks about is themselves without some amazing achievements and accomplishments in life to back it up, like, say, the world's most interesting man, other people quickly tune out, divest from the individual, and spend no time with that person. Once again, rendering that person insular and irrelevant to the rest of the entire world. Third, there is an observational effect of value or love, as we discussed about the musician's theoretical composition sitting unseen on the surface of Mars in Chapter 24. Unless there is another party or person to observe, appreciate, and like/love another person, then no such value exists. Proponents of self-love would argue that this is precisely the point of self-love, that they don't need an external party to confer or condone value or love upon them. But this then reinforces the entire point that self-love offers no value to society, only to oneself. And this is perhaps the core definition of self-love, as it only benefits the individual, is for the sake of the individual, and offers nothing of value to others. And so while podcasts can be recorded, research conducted, articles written, even books published about self-love, all that intellectual ballyhoo and pablum is completely unnecessary, as the entire concept of self-love is completely summarized and described in one word: masturbation. And a life based solely on masturbation is a very, very, very lonely life. Do you want to be alone? You can have the most advanced video game for Xbox One. You can have the most immersive environment a video game could ever offer for PS4. But the greatest, best, and most amazing game ever is the game of life. And the reason it's the best game ever is not some wishy-washy excuse about love or people or emotions. It's much more cryptic than that. It's the only real game you're ever going to play. And when it's done, in the eternal words of Private William Hudson, that's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. And whether you like it or not, you are conditioned and programmed to derive point, purpose, value, and reason in life in relation to other people. Sometimes this takes the form of you being a highly compensated and valued surgeon. Perhaps this takes the form of people loving your art or your creations. Maybe you invent an incredible technology that revolutionizes the world, making life easier for thousands of generations to come. Or, if you really want to be a rebel, you stay at home and do something crazy, like love, raise, and spend time with your kids. But however you derive that value, it must be done by being selfless, being altruistic, and either creating something of value or being something of value to another person. And that takes incredible effort, dedication, sacrifice, and toil. But if you don't want to participate in this game, if the prospect of working for a living, supporting yourself, providing something of value to society, or forging yourself into something another person would want to fall in love with is too daunting, that is fine too. You can go about insularly loving yourself, worshipping yourself, and masturbating to yourself both physically and intellectually. But you will have wasted your life and lost the game. Your existence will simply be you within your own mind your entire life, constantly trying to figure out how to beget value from society and other people without offering them something of value in return. A metaphorical psychological, emotional, and likely financial parasite, as work is beneath you, and your fear of work quarantines you from the rest of society. And though millions of people will be around you in crystal clear reality, you will be lonely, you will be by yourself, you will truly be unloved, and you will die alone. Your existence on this planet, in this universe, will have been truly pointless, because you were too damn lazy to put forth the effort to be of value to other people. You will have squandered everything on yourself.